Welcome to the deep dive. So today we are taking on a mission to uh, unpack a highly controversial text.
Right, a very provocative one.
Yeah, it's called Hoe Tactics, How to Mine from a Man into Spending, Spoiling, and Sponsoring by G.L. Lambert.
Quite the title.
I mean, it really is. And our goal today is to objectively decode the psychological playbook that the author has laid out here,
Exactly.
examining it through, behavioral psychology, gender dynamics, and just these extreme manipulation strategies.
Yeah, and we really need to establish a very clear baseline for you, listening right at the top here.
Absolutely, yeah.
We are strictly acting as impartial guides.
Yeah.
We are just here to examine the mechanics of this source material.
We're not taking sides.
Right, we are not endorsing these tactics, and we're definitely not evaluating their morality either.
No, we're just looking at the how and the why behind the framework the author presents.
Just reporting on the text.
So, now that we have our bearings, I have to say, reading the source material feels exactly like reading a manual for hostile corporate takeover.
Oh, totally. It's incredibly tactical.
Except, the target isn't a rival company, it's a man's wallet.
Right.
And the weapons aren't stock buybacks. They are voice inflection, manufactured scarcity, and, weaponized vulnerability.
It's fascinating. The core premise is that women can extract immense financial resources from men, not by trading sex, but by hacking a man's ego.
Which is wild.
Oh.
So where does it start?
Well, to execute any kind of hostile takeover, you need leverage.
Right. You have to have an advantage.
And according to the author's framework, a woman's absolute greatest leverage in this dynamic is her militant discipline in withholding physical intimacy.
Okay, so just locking that down completely.
Right. Exactly. And the text draws a very sharp clinical distinction here between two categories of behavior.
Right, and just to reiterate for the listener, we are using the book's specific terminology here to understand how the author builds this worldview.
Yeah. So they use the terms sluts and hoes to define these two very different approaches.
Okay, so how does the author define the former?
The former is defined as someone who engages in intimacy purely for physical lust, or biological release.
So it's impulsive.
Right. It's a hormone-driven action. But the text contrasts this with the hoe, which is defined as someone who uses seduction strictly for status, money, or material goods.
Meaning intimacy is never the end goal for them.
Never. In this playbook, it is a highly calculated asset used to secure a transaction.
But wait, hold on. I mean, we are talking about human beings here.
With actual hormones.
Yeah, biological drives. How does the author honestly expect a person to maintain this robotic, unyielding discipline?
It's a fair question.
Especially when they're sitting across from someone they are, intensely attracted to.
Right, because the text specifically talks about top-shelf men.
Yeah. Guys who are wealthy, charismatic, incredibly good-looking. I mean, doesn't the chemistry just override the strategy at that point?
Well, that is exactly the central tension the author addresses. He calls it willpower versus the pleasure principle.
Willpower versus the pleasure principle. Okay.
And the book readily admits that highly attractive men cause women to lose their discipline.
So the author knows it's a huge risk.
Oh, absolutely. The physical attraction triggers this cognitive override, leading them to settle for cheap, low-effort interactions.
What we might call those come over and chill dates.
Exactly. So the author's solution to this biological hijacking, is a concept called comprehension.
Meaning you just have to outthink your own biology.
Precisely, because willpower alone usually fails when you're faced with strong temptation.
Sure, it runs out.
But if you deeply comprehend the mechanics of the game, you build armor.
So how does that work in practice?
The text instructs the reader to look at a handsome, wealthy man and consciously reframe the interaction.
Reframing it how?
By telling yourself that his primary goal is to sleep with you, and the very moment you give in to your own immediate desires.
Your market value drops.
Yes. Your market value in his eyes plummets, and your leverage just evaporates.
Wow.
So you have to ruthlessly suppress that immediate pleasure principle for long-term economic gain.
I mean, the author puts it so bluntly. There's a line that says, pussy costs.
All right.
And then follows it up with this incredible quote, do not group on your pussy because a man doesn't want to pay full price.
It's literally applying pure cutthroat economic theory to dating.
It really is.
Because if you discount a premium product, you permanently devalue the brand.
Which brings up that vivid analogy in the text about Tiffany's.
Oh, yeah, the jewelry store.
Right. The author points out that Tiffany's doesn't change its window display or lower its prices just because a broke person walks by.
Right. They don't care if you just stare at the diamonds.
Exactly. The store remains entirely indifferent to the consumer's lack of capital.
Which is a perfect segue to the next massive hurdle in this framework.
The vetting process.
Because even if a woman successfully builds this ironclad, Tiffany-level willpower,
It doesn't matter if the guy's broke.
right, discipline is completely useless if she applies it to a target who cannot actually afford the desired outcome.
You need a target who actually has the capital to be exploited.
So you have to vet them. You don't want to launch a hostile takeover on a bankrupt company.
That makes sense. So how does the author suggest doing that?
He aggressively categorizes men into 3 strict financial tiers. The market segmentation is incredibly clinical.
Okay, lay it out for me.
So at the foundational level, you have treaters.
Treaters, right.
These are men whose disposable budget for a woman is generally under $500.
So they can handle nice dinners, maybe pay a cell phone bill.
Or right, they'll do small favors. They are basically seeking basic validation and are willing to spend within their modest means to get it.
Okay, so that's the bottom tier. What's above them?
Above them, you have the middle tier, the tricks.
The tricks.
And this category represents the $500 to $5,000 range.
Oh, so they have actual disposable income.
Exactly. They can afford luxury handbags, designer shoes, Caribbean vacations.
So what's their psychological driver?
Well, they enjoy the flash of spoiling a woman because it strokes their ego. But, and this is key, it is heavily transactional.
They want the fantasy of a beautiful woman on their arm.
Right, but they are not looking to integrate her into their permanent financial overhead.
Got it. And then, at the absolute apex of this ecosystem, we have the third tier,
The sponsors.
the sponsors.
And they operate in the $5,000 and up category.
Wow, okay.
We are talking about covering apartment rents, leasing luxury cars, or like fully funding a woman's business ideas.
That is a completely different level of wealth.
It is. The text notes these men possess a specific tier of wealth and are often older or married.
So their motivation is different too.
Very different. They want a fantasy woman hidden away in a secluded environment entirely separate from their real day-to-day lives.
And they have the capital to maintain that illusion indefinitely. But, the author warns readers that guys lie constantly about which tier they actually belong to.
Oh, all the time.
Like, you can't just trust the visual flash. There are fake luxury watches, leased cars they can barely afford the payments on.
Borrowed designer clothes.
Yeah, these are all illusions designed to bypass a woman's vetting process.
Right, to get the prize without having the actual capital.
So how do you actually verify their capital without sounding like, I don't know, an IRS auditor on a first date?
Well, the author outlines a strategy of calculating a man's actual overhead versus his disposable income.
Okay.
The text instructs the manipulator to verify the man's address by suggesting a spontaneous drop-by to bring him lunch.
Oh, that's clever.
Right. If he panics and makes excuses, he's likely hiding a living situation that doesn't match his persona.
So he might be pretending to be a sponsor, but living like a treater.
Exactly. Furthermore, you have to nail down his exact job title.
Right, because someone saying they are a manager at a tech company could mean they are a senior software director.
Or it could mean they manage the custodial staff.
Huge difference in disposable income.
You have to do the mathematical equation on his lifestyle overhead. If he makes a decent salary but lives in an incredibly expensive high-rise,
And drives a car he can barely afford.
right, then his actual disposable income, the capital available to spend on you, is zero.
So if you're listening to this and wondering how someone pulls off a financial audit on a second date, the book has this brilliant behavioral economics tool.
The headphone test.
Yes, the headphone test.
He's so good.
The author says, before the third date, you call the man and casually mention you have an emergency.
Just a little crisis.
Right, you desperately need him to pick up a pair of headphones for you on his way over.
And crucially, you do not specify a brand or a price point.
You just leave the problem entirely in his lap.
It is a phenomenal micro-investment test.
Because it measures not just his wallet, but his willingness to open it unprompted.
Exactly. So if he arrives with cheap $20 headphones from a gas station or a convenience store,
He is either a treater or fundamentally cheap.
right, his instinct is to solve the problem with the lowest possible capital output.
But if he walks in with $200 Bose Beats headphones, you immediately have your data.
He is a trick
Yeah, a trick who doesn't mind deploying premium capital to solve your problems.
because he wants the ego boost of providing a high-end solution. It measures his psychological relationship to spending money on you.
But wait, There's one massive exception to this entire market segmentation strategy, right?
Yes, and that involves celebrities or high-profile athletes.
The rules for pro athletes and actors are completely inverted
Completely backward.
because the author points out that these men live in an ecosystem where they get everything for free.
Free VIP tables, free designer clothes, endless free attention from women.
So the text instructs the manipulator to do the unthinkable in this scenario,
Actually pay for the first couple of dates.
which is wild.
But the evolutionary psychology at play here is just fascinating. By paying for the meal, the woman weaponizes reverse psychology to administer a profound shock to his ego.
She basically signals, I am not a groupie.
Right. Your money does not impress me, and I am not intimidated by your status.
It completely disarms his usual defense mechanisms.
And because a high-status male ego generally cannot tolerate a woman paying for him, he will aggressively overcompensate on subsequent dates.
By buying lavish gifts.
Exactly, to reestablish his dominance and wealth in the dynamic. It is a calculated short-term financial loss engineered for a massive long-term gain.
Okay, so once you have mathematically proven the target has disposable income and fits into the right tier, the dynamic shifts.
Right, you have to actually acquire those resources.
But how do you pull them in without triggering a transaction? How do you keep the leverage of withholding sex while making them want to spend?
Well, the author presents a case study of a woman named Maria operating at a Best Buy.
And it is a masterclass in aggressive, targeted seduction.
It really is. Maria's approach dismantles the traditional idea of waiting to be noticed. She treats the environment like a hunting ground.
Right, she goes specifically to the high-end computer section,
Targeting a man researching expensive premium laptops.
which immediately qualifies his budget,
Exactly. And she initiates contact by asking for his technical advice.
which instantly strokes his ego.
Right, it establishes him as an authority figure right out of the gate.
But the physical tactics she deploys to manufacture intimacy are intense. Like, she doesn't stand face-to-face in a standard conversational distance.
No, the text describes her actively invading his personal space, standing shoulder to shoulder.
Close enough that her perfume becomes a dominant sensory input for him.
And her eye contact is described as relentless.
She isn't just smiling politely, she is staring at him with raw, intense desire while he explains, processor speeds.
Right, which creates a massive cognitive dissonance in the man's brain.
Because logically, they are discussing computer specifications in a sterile retail environment.
But her body language, her proximity, and her gaze are screaming intense sexual availability.
It scrambles his usual social scripts.
He feels like he is uncovering this hidden, deeply intimate connection.
And that cognitive dissonance is amplified by a vocal technique the author calls the sexy highlighter.
Oh, this is brilliant.
This blew my mind. What is a sexy highlighter?
It's a method of hacking auditory processing. The text instructs the manipulator to use a breathy, lower register voice inflection.
Like Marilyn Monroe.
Yes, think Marilyn Monroe, but you only use it on very specific, otherwise mundane words.
So if she is talking about needing help carrying something, instead of just saying, I hate doing this alone,
She drops her register and drags out the word alone.
injecting a completely mundane sentence with a filthy, suggestive undertone.
And the brilliance of this tactic from a manipulation standpoint is that it forces the man to read double meanings into everything she says.
He constructs an intoxicating fancy matrix in his own mind.
Exactly. He believes he is decoding subtle hints about her hidden, adventurous sexuality.
Which hooks his attention far more effectively than overt sexual language ever would.
Because he thinks he's figuring it out himself.
Right, and once she secures his phone number and leaves, the communication strategy that follows is governed by an acronym.
CLITT.
Call, listen, ignore that text.
The author explicitly forbids readers from becoming a man's daytime text buddy.
You ignore the casual, how is your day texts entirely.
Completely. Instead, you carve out a highly specific late-night phone call schedule.
Which is so calculated. Think about the psychological impact of that structure.
Ignoring daytime texts leverages the scarcity principle.
It establishes that her time is highly valuable.
Right, she is not waiting around for his attention, and she is unavailable when he is distracted by his normal life.
But then, at 11 p.m., she calls him.
And that late-night call establishes psychological territory.
It creates an intimate, dark, isolated space where he has no other distractions.
Within that space, she can deliver mind-blowing phone sex, satisfying his auditory and imaginative desires without ever making physical contact.
She basically becomes the fantasy he falls asleep to. She becomes an attention architect.
That's a great way to put it.
The manipulator is hacking the man's ego by constructing a reality where he feels like he is the absolute center of her universe in the dark, but during the light of day, she is totally elusive,
It keeps him completely off balance.
chasing the high of that late-night intimacy.
And that imbalance is crucial because physical attraction and phone sex have a ceiling.
Right, they only get you so far.
If a manipulator wants to escalate from dinners to extracting major resources like a leased car or an apartment, she has to pivot her entire strategy.
She must transition from being an object of lust to an object of deep emotional dependency.
Which brings us to the checkmate of the text.
Yes, the checkmate. I was trying to find a way to describe this shift, and the best analogy is a software backdoor.
Okay, I like that.
You can't just forcefully hack a highly secure system. You have to write a piece of code that looks like a friendly program, so the system willingly opens its own firewall.
And the backdoor in this playbook is a tactic the author calls the secret swap.
A secret swap.
The mechanism of this is devastatingly effective. The manipulator shares a deep, dark, traumatic secret with the target.
And the text notes that the authenticity of the secret is completely irrelevant, right?
Entirely irrelevant. It can be real or it can be a complete fabrication. The function is what matters.
By exposing this extreme vulnerability, she makes the man feel like he is the single, solitary person in the world she trusts enough to share her pain with.
Which triggers what the author calls the little sister dynamic.
Okay, unpack that.
Evolutionary psychology suggests that men have a deeply ingrained biological urge to protect the vulnerable.
The hero complex.
Exactly. When the manipulator drops the hypersexualized persona and reveals this broken, traumatized side, she bypasses his logical defenses against being used for money.
He stops viewing her as a fleeting sexual conquest and begins viewing her as a fragile bird with a broken wing.
A bird that only he has the strength and resources to fix.
He thinks he is being this heroic protector saving a damsel in distress, but he's actually opening his wallet, stepping directly into a financial trap.
And we see exactly how this manifests in the real world by returning to the Maria case study.
Specifically, how she secures a $3,000 Celine bag.
The execution here is terrifyingly precise. Because think about it, if she just demands a $3,000 bag, what happens?
The illusion shatters instantly, it becomes a transaction.
Right. The man's logical firewall goes back up, he recognizes he is being shaken down, and he withdraws.
So for this to work, it has to be an engineered rescue mission.
So instead of demanding, she calls him in a state of manufactured panic, just crying hysterically?
They are supposed to attend a high-profile charity gala together, and she tells him she simply cannot go.
Her finances are a disaster, she feels like an absolute loser, and she doesn't have an appropriate handbag for an event of that caliber.
She forces him to pull the solution out of her.
She presents a crisis of self-worth, not a demand for retail.
So when he finally inevitably asks how much the specific bag she needs costs, she just whispers $3.
And he assumes she means $300.
But when she softly corrects him and says $3,000, she immediately plays defeated.
She says it's too much, she shouldn't have brought it up, she'll just stay home and be miserable while he goes and has fun.
I mean, consider the psychological pressure cooker she has just placed him in.
His hero complex is fully activated.
He doesn't just want to buy the bag. He needs to buy the bag to validate his own self-image as a powerful protector.
Someone who can instantly solve the distress of the woman he cares about.
He practically forces her to accept the money so he can stop her tears and save the day.
He feels like a king taking care of his queen, completely oblivious to the fact that the entire scenario was scripted.
And the author notes that Maria later deploys the exact same tactic, faking a severe emotional breakdown in his bed.
Sobbing about her life falling apart.
All without offering sex.
Mm.
And manipulates him into volunteering to pay her $400 a month BMW car note.
It requires an ability to cry on cue and guide a man's ego so precisely that he thinks giving away his money was entirely his own idea.
But because these emotional backdoor tactics are so potent, they are also incredibly volatile.
Highly volatile. Which brings the author to a set of strict, non-negotiable rules for operating this system.
Because this is a game of pure capitalism, which requires absolute emotional detachment from the manipulator.
The first major warning in the text is against what the author calls revenge hoeing,
Which is when someone tries to deploy these tactics against an ex-boyfriend out of anger.
or tries to financially ruin a man specifically because he broke their heart.
The author is unequivocal here. Emotion makes you sloppy.
When anger or a desire for vengeance is driving the strategy, logic fails. patience evaporates.
And the manipulator makes critical errors.
To successfully execute this playbook, one must remain cold, calculating, and indifferent to the target's actual feelings.
And the book shares this wild cautionary tale about a woman named Tanya to illustrate what happens when you lose that cold discipline.
Tanya set her sights on a highly lucrative target, an elite NFL player.
But she lacked the patience required for the long game. She was only securing small wins, dinners, minor gifts.
And she wanted the massive payout of a sponsor immediately.
But she violated the absolute core tenet of the entire philosophy.
She had sex with him.
She gave up her leverage, hoping to trap him by getting pregnant.
And when that biological gamble didn't pay off immediately, she panicked.
She pivoted to extortion, attempting to blackmail the athlete for $10,000 to disappear.
And the author details how spectacularly this backfired. The NFL player seemingly agreed to the blackmail terms.
But when the exchange was supposed to happen, he sent his associates.
They robbed Tanya at gunpoint, taking the money back and effectively erasing her from his life.
The author presents this not as a moral failing, but as a severe tactical error.
Greed, impatience, and losing sight of the leverage will result in the game brutally destroying you.
Which leads directly to the author's final, most chilling rule, the exit strategy.
The text heavily warns manipulators against ever actually falling in love with their target.
This is where the sheer, unadulterated business nature of the text reaches its peak.
The author reminds the reader of the fundamental nature of the target. He is a trick.
That is his behavioral profile.
Yeah.
He pays for the illusion of perfection.
If the manipulator gets soft, if she falls in love and allows her flawless, disciplined tactics to get lazy,
Her market value drops.
and because he operates in a capitalistic framework himself, he will eventually replace her with a newer, smarter, more disciplined manipulator.
There is no enduring loyalty in this dynamic. There is only market value and leverage.
To treat human connection exactly like a stock portfolio,
Buying low on a man's vulnerability, selling high on his ego.
and ensuring you never ever develop an emotional attachment to the asset.
It is a profoundly staggering way to view the world.
It strips away every ounce of romance, framing dating strictly as an exchange of commodities.
Female beauty and manufactured intimacy are traded for male ego-stroking and financial capital.
So as we pull back from the text, the core theme of this source material is crystal clear.
It frames the dating ecosystem as a ruthless capitalistic game.
It assumes that the male ego, male loneliness, and the biological desire to be a protector are nothing more than behavioral currencies waiting to be exploited.
By a highly disciplined, emotionally detached operator.
And we want to reiterate for you, the listener, that our goal today was simply to map out the intense psychological framework the author claims is happening beneath the surface of these interactions.
Think about your own past relationships for a moment. Have you ever found yourself abandoning all your normal standards because you fell victim to the pleasure principle?
Or, on the other side of the coin, have you ever felt that overwhelming, almost irrational urge to be someone's hero?
To swoop in and save them from their crises, only to realize much later that your protective instincts were being actively played.
The most effective manipulations always rely on weaponizing our best intentions.
The desire to help, the desire to protect, the desire to feel needed.
These are the exact vulnerabilities this playbook targets.
Which leaves us with a deeply provocative thought to ponder for you as we wrap up this deep dive. Let's assume for a moment that these incredibly manipulative tactics actually work as flawlessly as the author claims they do.
They work precisely because they exploit a human being's desperate, fundamental need to feel special, desired, and heroic.
If that is true, what does it say about the staggering level of extreme loneliness and insecurity in our modern world?
It's a dark thought.
Are people today so profoundly starved for genuine, authentic connection that they will happily pay thousands of dollars just to experience the illusion of it?
A lot of money for a mirage.
If a Trojan horse is welcomed inside the gates with such open arms and eagerness, maybe it's because the city inside the walls is just desperate for some company.